Hello, friends. Welcome to How She Owns It, a podcast dedicated to female entrepreneurs and boss moms who left their 9 to 5 to own their time, their finances, and their joy in life by building their own businesses. And in this episode, I have Brittany Reid. Welcome to the show, Brittany.
Thank you.
So, can you tell us a little bit about, your journey so far into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so it happened many moons ago, many years ago. And I was literally just like this entrepreneur as a kid. I remember growing up and I would like sell jewelry and like lemonade and hot chocolate like on the corner of like where I grew up, which was on a lake. And I was just so fascinated and very multi-passionate as a kid. I was very great at many things. It kind of started then, like when I really dive into it, it was like I loved to create things and sell them. And I actually started selling jewelry in a beautiful like worldly summer shop that opened up for like 6 months of the year. And I started selling jewelry there, and I had many jobs at the time. And then I basically graduated and went overseas, and from there I contracted a lot. So I kind of was my own boss, but I would still have like a sense of security, and I'm air quoting right now, but I defined that with the business. Like I was very much like, okay, I'm coming in full time, but this is what it's going to look like for me as well. And so I kind of hopped back and forth. And my first experience outside of selling jewelry when I was a young teenager was I actually started selling jewelry again after creating it in Bali. And I sold nutrition programs online. So I went into holistic nutrition. And once I was back from my overseas living and trips and kind of traveling and discovering what I wanted and culture and just lifestyle, that I started selling nutrition programs online after I went to school. And that's when I really got a taste of the freedom that I truly craved. So it was really hard for me to keep a job. People loved me in jobs, but it was hard for me to keep the job
Oh my
because
goodness. I can relate. I can definitely relate to this. It's like, what's wrong with me?
yeah, I was like, what's wrong? And I would quickly grow in the job where I just feel like I just wouldn't resonate with it anymore. It wouldn't be challenging. It wouldn't like light me up, even though I still loved the topics that I was, and the things that I was doing inside of that. But I was like, why is this so hard? And I just didn't like that someone was choosing my time for me. And that's when
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I left all of the contract work. I left, like I was working all over the place, and I'm meaning all over the place. Like I was working with different businesses on contract, doing different things. So I still was sort of owning my time, but I didn't own it completely. And so from there, I sold nutrition programs online. I was mentoring women with their hormones, and mainly that was the main thing that I used to do. And then from there, I started traveling and I moved overseas again, and I was able to really experience owning my time and just really loving to be able to create my schedule. And that was like my first taste of the online space. And that was quite a few years ago. And from there, I wanted to help other holistic healers and nutritionists and coaches and wellness practitioners be able to do the same thing. And that's when we moved into opening up and offering individuals like how to take your sacred knowledge and what you have to give to the world and impact it globally. Because that's what I really love, is that we get to connect with each other all over the world. And
Yeah.
I just feel like when we're opening up that space and we're doing that sacred work that is authentic and truthful and with an integrity, that we really get to transform the way people are living, feeling, being in their lives. And that's how I kind of merged the spaces of my nutrition background while working with entrepreneurs and really reminding them that this business isn't something that in the coaching industry, if you are in the coaching industry, which I believe that you have a lot of your audience is probably coaches or service-based businesses, that there's this pressure that we need to make a certain amount of money and that will be fulfilling, or you're a successful coaching business if you make this, or if you're doing this, and if you're always growing. But for me, it's about a journey for my clients to really embody and build their business that matches their life and their rhythms of their cycles, and to get out of this masculine programmed way of operating in business. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's sort of my entrepreneurial journey to this moment, and kind of who I love working with, and kind of what we support. We support a lot of women. I would love to work with men too, but I just never seem to attract them. Maybe because I talk a lot about like periods and
Yeah.
just women's health. But it's really just, for me, being an entrepreneur has always it's always a remembering process that I trust myself, I'm capable, everything I want in my life or want to create is possible. And as long as I'm following my heart and what really feels good to me, everything is going to work out. And I need to let go of all of the other areas that can get me sticky or caught up in my mind, and really drop into my body. And that's been the biggest process for me, and just watching my clients do that as well. It's beautiful, because that's when we really create a business that really matches our life and our inner rhythms, so that nothing feels stressful or challenging. But it is a challenge, but there's ease through the challenge. We understand that this challenge is coming up for something, and there's not this deep amount of stress that kind of takes us off the rails, right? And sideswipes us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, why I wanted to speak with you is you practice something called Kundalini. Can you tell my listeners a little bit more about what Kundalini is? And it may be pronouncing it right. I've never actually heard of it until I found it out through you. So can you explain a little bit more about,
Yeah.
and you mentioned traveling, and that's really, really wonderful. I have a lot of listeners who are also kind of budding nomads. So you can talk a little bit more about that as well. I'm sure that a lot of our listeners would love to hear how you went about traveling and working at the same time.
Yeah. So Kundalini is this sacred technology. It's actually bringing together science and energy. So you're working with breath, movement, and sound. And really, Kundalini is this energy that lies at the very tip of our spine. So when we think about, if any of your listeners have worked with chakras, I know chakras are a very kind of common term now,
Mm-hmm.
which is so beautiful, because it's starting to tap people into these incredible energy centers that we do have. Well, Kundalini is at the very tip, and it's kind of like this coiled energy of our truest essence. It's this unlimited, limitless energy of our truest potential. And when it's activated, a lot of times it's laying dormant, and it's not actually moving through the body as it can, because of the blocks that happen in the chakras that go up the spine, and there can be imbalances in the energy. And so what Kundalini really is to me, and we all have our own kind of definition or explanation of it, is just this sacred technology that pairs science with energy around using angles, because you are doing these different postures, or what we would call as kriyas, which is like a specific set movement for a specific result. So
Right.
it's very specific, where you would be doing a practice to wake up the 10 bodies. So in Kundalini, we actually, instead of referring to the chakras all the time, it's more of the 10 body experience. And to me, it's one of the greatest entrepreneurial tools, because I believe that Kundalini has gifted me the resilience and the confidence, and it changes your energy to actually just drop into that desire, to drop into that result. And so we have different practices, when my clients are going through launches, they'll like be practicing a different Kundalini practice. And it's amazing just to see what can happen. And it's really because you become the owner of your own power. And that's really about Kundalini itself. And so you really get to own your own power, and you get to own your own energy, and you get to start to understand, oh, this emotion I get to direct. This emotion
Yeah.
doesn't have to be me. I get to direct
Mhm.
this. So, in business, if you're experiencing, like, say, lack of clients, like you want to create more
Mhm.
clients, and you're having a hard time, maybe, or you're experiencing it through the mind as this hard time, actually converting people to clients, to paying clients. Well, in Kundalini, what can happen is you can actually start to practice things to start to change the energy within, that starts to then transfer out into your energetic body and starts to change the way you're operating. And you get to drop out of this, like, oh, it's hard, it's hard, it's hard mentality, into, I get to choose that this is hard, or I get to choose that this can be easy.
And I think for a
Um,
lot of people, that's really difficult, especially
mhm.
for newbie coaches, newbie service providers. A lot of people are starting Shopify or Etsy shops now, especially with the holidays. And I think a lot of people really struggle, especially if you're someone who's very much, very logical, very rational, very kind of into numbers kind of person. um,
Yeah.
they kind of find it really difficult to disconnect and think of things in energy, which I think is, a lot of people can resonate with this if they're not naturally, well, I don't really believe in this, but I feel like everyone's spiritual in some way. But if you're not like naturally open-minded about spirituality, I think it's quite difficult for you to grasp energies in business. Some people are very, kind of masculine energy, and I've been told this
Yeah.
before because I've worked in a corporate environment that where masculine energy thrives, right? There's a reason why a lot of people are men in the top, right? So I think it's really difficult for that kind of feminine energy to be valued in business in the same way. So what kind of advice would you give to someone who's not necessarily a skeptic, but someone who is struggling to harness, energy work, um,
Mm.
and it's not just harness the concept of it, but also translate its positiveness to better their business, right?
Yeah, well, first I want to share that I believe that if we're stuck in the masculine, which is what I believe the world is stuck in right now, if
Mm,
you don't start to tap into your feminine, specifically if you are a woman, that is your truest nature. It
mm-hmm,
is your superpower, and that's where we're going. Like, that's where we're heading in business, is a very feminine, intuitive, but with the support of the masculine.
mm-hmm,
That's why a lot of women are rising to the top in corporate positions. And one of the most beautiful sayings that one of, I believe, my mentors told me years ago was that the millionaires don't do energy work, but billionaires, they know their astrology, they know all of the ins and outs of the energy world too. And I don't like to attach it to, obviously, numbers of like a 7-figure, 6 figures, like
mm-hmm,
billionaires, that, but it just showed you that, like, or like, to me, what it tapped me into was that I've always been the way I have. Energy work, and that has been part of my life since I was a little kid. But it's like, sometimes you believe that that person that maybe you see has a very successful, and profitable business doesn't do energy work. Well, they might just not be talking about it. It might, and oftentimes when you actually get to know someone, they do start talking about their astrologist, their energy healer, their shadow worker, their body talk practitioner that they work with. And I feel like a lot of people would be surprised just how many people actually do the work. And it's why they are successful too. Because if we can't go through our shadows and, our challenges and the inner workings of our being, it's really hard to feel confident to create the money, or to create that program, or to create that business of your dreams, because you're going to get held up by something that's
mm-hmm.
happening internally. And so
Uh-huh.
if you are someone who is more logical, who needs kind of like research to prove, which is like, I bow to you for being that, because we need individuals in the world like you. And that's just a superpower that you've incarnated with, is that you see numbers really well, you see structures really well, you see that really well. I just invite you to drop into your body and start breathing. Breath is something that we can relate to because we use it every day, and it's part of our existence, and there's science behind it. And when you start to breathe and you start to really expand your breath, I believe that it opens you up to just really starting to experience and explore more. Oh, can we do it? Can we do 3 deep breaths together right now?
Yeah,
I always
go
drop
for it.
my audience in. So where you're at right now, if you can find a comfortable position, and if you're a skeptic or you're like, where is this woman taking me? I'm just going to remind you to breathe. That's it. But I'd just like you to elongate out of the spine. So just kind of lifting up out of the chair or where you might be. If you're driving, please do not do this. Please only do this when you are in stillness. You're in a space where it's safe. But just allow your spine to come out, creating more length, kind of imagining the top of your head becoming closer to the ceiling or the sky, and dropping your shoulders back and down, just creating some more space within the heart. So this actually allows our chest to open. It will feel really, really nice, because oftentimes we spend so much time on our computers or a phone where our shoulders are coming forward. And if it feels comfortable, just to close your eyes, and I'd like you to inhale on a count to 4. And exhale on a count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can continue to do this breath, just allowing yourself to slow down the breath and come into the body. You can focus on the numbers if your mind is chattering. And just allow yourself to actually feel what it feels like to inhale presently, and be present with your inhale and exhale. For me, breath is one of the greatest practices. You're welcome to come out of it or continue while you listen to the rest of the podcast. But breath is one of the greatest practices to remind us of our body, to drop into our body, to feel our body and not be in our mind. The mind can sometimes chatter quite a bit when we're getting used to practicing breath work, when we're used to practicing meditation, which can be the challenge a lot of people may discover. But breath is
Absolutely.
going to pull you into the body. And from there, you're going to go, wow, okay, I feel just more peace inside. I wonder what it's like. And all of a sudden my clients will be like, wow, I see the color orange. Like, Britt, what's happening with this color orange that's coming through? Or I feel this brick wall. Like, I can sense this, it's like a brick wall. And they'll start to just share these moments of just what's happening, what's coming through, whether they can see it or feel it, or like there's just a sense. And that's your energy. And we are energetic beings living in this physical container, and I know that might be esoteric or hard to grasp onto, but the thing with spirituality and energy work in that is, one, you do want to definitely feel safe and supported with who you choose to go into that container with, and you want that to be very, very aligned with yourself. But I believe that our beings will never take us to a space that we're not meant to explore.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back on your point, and I love that, by the way. I love breath work. I love meditation. So that was wonderful for me. A little bit of a pause during my afternoon. I wanted to ask you, because I know that you work with people with vibrations, and what would you do if you can't, and I'm asking more for a lot of people's sanity because the holidays are coming up, and sometimes, family can be very difficult during this holiday season. How do you deal with kind of bad vibes, as they call it, in kind of normal day to day? But how do you deal
bad.
and in business you have bad clients,
Oh, yeah.
or difficult clients rather, and I guess like difficult energy, like a coworker who's very negative. Like, how does one guard their energy, their vibrations in that sense?
For me, it's holding ourselves in compassion and acceptance and forgiveness. And oftentimes the vibes are never bad. There's just something happening that either you're feeling that they don't know of, or, they're living in a wounded pattern, and that's what you're experiencing. Instead of becoming a victim to it, holding that person in compassion around, going, wow, like, they're really struggling right now with something, and there's something happening. There's this culture of, like, there's bad people or toxic people, which I definitely believe that we need to have discernment and create boundaries, which is like, I feel like a program in itself to learn about boundaries. But
yes, definitely, especially for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially for a lot of newbies.
Yeah. And in life, right, to like stand up to someone and say that's not right, I believe that's what we're learning a lot in 2020, of going,
Yes,
like, this is what I want, or this is not appropriate.
yes, exactly. And I think as more like woke we become, it becomes more apparent about people's varying varying boundaries.
Yeah.
um
So
yeah.
compassion, acceptance, and forgiveness for yourself and that person. And, I've had really challenging moments with friends and family, and, I've had more difficult clients, but they're not difficult clients. They're just not actually clients that are meant for me,
Right,
Um,
right.
there's just like, it's me doing better reflection and better work in my business to make sure that our messaging is so clear. So if you're
Right.
feeling like you're attracting people that it is really challenging, there's just like one thing after another with a client, well, you as the owner of your business need to become super clear on why you're letting that in. And maybe that's because you don't feel worthy of having someone actually that's super exciting to work with. Or maybe it's that your messaging and your positioning is actually not in alignment to who you're truly meant to be serving. And it's within your own ownership to own it, to own you first, before you start to open up containers to help others, because you need to become clear and confident and grounded in what you want and what you desire and what you are open for. And, for the holidays, it can be a very tender time.
Yeah,
As
because you can run away
entrepreneurs,
from, clients that are not for you, but you can't run away
yeah,
from family.
run away from necessarily your family. And so, check in with yourself, ask yourself, like, okay, well, maybe I do need to put up a boundary. Maybe like I do need to like not go to that party, because I do know that, I will experience this type of energy, and that will put me into a spiral of overeating or of getting really negative on myself or feeling just really triggered, like whatever it is. I believe a trigger is a teacher, and a
Mm.
trigger is an indication of
Did you
what's
tweet
happening
this?
in our. No, I haven't
This is
tweeted.
such a
I don't have Twitter.
tweetable. In Marie
I don't.
Forleo's words, this is a tweetable.
It's a tweetable.
A
I don't know
trigger
how
is a
to tweet.
teacher. Okay, please tell me more. Sorry to interrupt. I just love
No,
that.
that's okay. I just don't know how to use Twitter. That's funny. Twitter. Yeah, we'll tweet that. A trigger is a teacher, and a trigger that you experience is just a teacher of something that's happening in your being that you need to look at, Or it's also checking in with going, is this mine or is that theirs? And I'm just feeling it. And so individuals who are very empathic, I believe we're all very empathic, but some people are more empathic, meaning that they just can, like, being around certain individuals can really, really impact their mental and just general well-being.
Mm.
And so asking yourself, is this mine or is this someone else's? Because sometimes we actually feel like it's ours, but it's not. And
Mm.
there's so much power of going, wow, no, that isn't mine. And I'm going to just bless it and hold compassion for that and accept and forgive that person, or just accept and forgive this moment, because truly it's one either teaching me or it's gifting me an opportunity to be stronger in my boundaries, be stronger in my communication, or it's just gifting me an opportunity to have more compassion and forgiveness and acceptance that that person or that experience was just the experience that it was, and that person's trying to do the best that they can at the level of
Mhm.
awareness that they have.
Absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely. Yeah, I think that's really, really important with family, definitely. I was speaking to one of my interns, and she's just moved in with her in-laws and with her mother-in-law because of the lockdown here in Europe. And she was telling me, like, I can't run away, live with my mother-in-law. She's nice, but it's the lockdown. And I said to her, yes, it is a tough situation for everyone. But
when all of the lockdowns started happening, and
mm,
we are experiencing it right now, so I still feel like it's so relevant, is that
yes.
I shared with my family, I'm like, the universe has put us all in our rooms, aka our houses or apartments or places we live, to deal with the stuff we haven't dealt with.
Mm,
And I felt like it was gifting the world the opportunity to come into stillness, which is so
mhm,
uncomfortable when we look at
mhm,
actually how big the world is. How many
mhm,
flights that are happening every day? How many, how many times you leave your house to go do all
mhm,
of these little things, but do they actually really matter? Or are they just a distraction from us sitting with ourselves
mhm.
and going, wow, you know, I lost that job, but I also was super unhappy in it,
Yeah, for sure.
or
Yeah.
or always wanted to start my business, and now I have to, because I
What
have
is there to
nothing, like
do?
I only have time.
Yeah. Or
Uh,
sometimes people are, there's been a lot of successful businesses because they've lost their job. So it was either like swim or die kind of thing for a lot of people. I've spoken to a lot of my associates who opened shop
yeah,
because they didn't have a choice.
they didn't have a choice, and so you're getting nudged into the thing that you've been just shoving down.
Mm,
Like, oh, I really want to start that business. I really want, oh no, next year, next month, next this. Oh, I need to save more money, or I need to do this, or I need more trainings and this. And like, it's
mhm,
just so much in the mind. And it's like, if you want to start the business, start the business. If you want to scale your business, scale the business. If you want to explore energy work, but there's a bit of hesitation, start exploring your breath. If you want to, whatever you want to do, just it's really taught us to go, you know what, like nothing is secure,
yeah.
like not secure, like nothing is truly
Absolutely.
secure.
This is why I always find it
So
funny when people talk about, contract and freelance work as not as secure as employed work in terms of, like with a salary kind of thing. But I always just say, yeah, but then the pandemic happened and then everyone just got fired. If you diversified your clients, you still have plans of clients kind of thing. So I think it's very interesting. People's kind of mindset is shifting towards shifting away from like that negative or the stigma around remote working, and which is great. I'm very excited with the embracement of remote work and working from home. A lot of moms get to be with their children more.
yeah,
So
I mean, I
and
feel
and
so blessed
dads.
that business was the way it was, because
Mm,
we have a little boy, and we've never had to talk about anything when, and I know that if you're listening to this podcast right now, like, I'm not taking away by saying the things that I have, this struggle and the challenge and the intensity of what it was like to lose a job, or to be in a
mhm,
position where, you know there's hardly any money to feed for the next month. Like,
Yeah.
I really honor and I see you and I can see that. I just think it's also a great opportunity to go, okay, well, like, what can I do for myself now? Like, what can I do to create it? And that's just what I've learned as an entrepreneur, is that I feel so safe
Mm-hmm.
in my body because I know that I can create an opportunity. I know that if my business had to shut down, I would be safe because I do have trust and confidence in myself that I would figure it out, and
Yeah.
I would be
Yeah.
able to move forward. And I just hope that you feel inspired about it if you are in a space still where it feels like a big struggle, and that. And I hold compassion for all of our experiences through this, because it's really rocked us, on different levels.
Yeah.
And I feel like we needed that rocking, though, to come into deeper alignment. And for
Yes. Yeah.
women
Mm-hmm.
specifically, deeper trust with their own body's way of being. Like, we go through a whole cycle, whether we identify with bleeding or not, or we do physically bleed or not, but this is like a birthing time to really understand the way your body operates every month, and that we need to stop putting pressure on ourselves to be as productive as last week, because
Yeah.
our hormones are different week to week. And
Mm-hmm.
we do live in the world where entrepreneurship is a very masculine structure of, like, you get up and you slay it every day. And it's not the case as a woman. We're very cyclical. We have this rhythm that happens every month, and our hormones are our superpowers. They teach you that, in when you're ovulating, like, that's like the most incredible time to do podcast interviews, to do that big speech. To A lot of women usually sell out their programs around ovulation, because there's this peak of energy in your being, of vibrancy, of light, because, like, think of the full moon in that space. And when you are on your time to, to bleed, or whether you don't bleed, you still go through a week of remembrance, of wisdom, of, like, curation. And that's like a really great time for you to go into the creative moments of going, what messages am I receiving to create that different program, or to come into deeper alignment with a program. And often it's because we're creating programs that aren't in alignment to our energy, and the energy teaches us, in that week, that we're bleeding, or maybe we're not bleeding. But in that week, when our hormones change again, it's a time of a very inner reflective moment, where we're meant to reflect, we're meant to remember, we're meant to hear those downloads, or hear those creative ideas, whatever resonates, or whatever word resonates with you. They're the same thing. And then we come out of that week and we're starting to build up our energy again, and our hormones start to build in a different way that supports creation, that supports bringing it to life. And I
Yeah.
find when women entrepreneurs, they live their business through that, it effortlessly helps them to create this flow of creation, and of implementation, and then of selling, and then of also reflecting and rejuvenating their energy.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact that you spoke about it in the podcast, because it's not a topic that's spoken about a lot. And I think we've all know that, well, women all know kind of painful periods. It's hard to be productive, and it's great that you've mentioned that you don't have to feel like you should be. I think it's just because we live in a very male-dominated society that we do feel that pressure. Just to wrap things up, Brittany, because I know that you have a lot given this topic. Where can people find you if they want to find out more about this work, and maybe get some help with how to deal with their cycles?
Yeah. So we're on Instagram at Brittany C. Reid. There's a C in between my name on Instagram. So Brittany Reid. And then at brittanyreid.ca, .ca as well. So Instagram at Brittany C. Reid. And then my website, brittanyreid.ca. And we do have some YouTube. We also have the podcast, How to Be Podcast, which is all of the untamed ways of being. And it's really beautiful because we have an array of different entrepreneurs on there talking about their journey and just the untold stories of entrepreneurship. It's something that I like to just break down that paradigm and narrative that we need to keep these things kind of hidden, and not talk about the moments that aren't so celebratory, where we're not
Yes.
maybe celebrating, you know, a
All the
sold out
challenges.
program. We also,
Yes.
yeah, we need to talk about the challenges and talk about the moments where maybe you want to give up and you're years into
Yeah.
your business, or, you know, like all of those
Absolutely.
are what you mentioned. You just
Yeah.
recorded with a woman who went back into employment, right?
Right. Yeah. That's what we love about it. Like I mentioned to you, like my last podcast recording was about that. Yeah. We love the nitty gritty here. And I think we want to reflect life. We want to reflect what it's like, all the stress, all the ups and downs, all the roller coasters. So that's the reason that How She Owns It
Yeah.
is around, you know, it's to show how we own it. So I love it.
How
Well,
you, to me, how you own it, just to finish off, is that
mm,
you own it by being you, and you own it by actually coming into deep connection with yourself. The way you can own it in your business, out in this world, with your relationships, with everything else, you own it by owning yourself. And by owning yourself is really dealing with the light and the darkness that comes with this life that we live.
mhm,
And by following your cyclical nature of, you know, feeling no guilt and shame around, you know, bleeding and having a hard period, well, you know, that difficult period is actually teaching you something, but the world's just projected that that's the way it has to be for women, and it truly
mm,
doesn't. And so it's following that cyclical nature of yourself so that you can start to be the guide of your own life, which then that's your superpower. And you can create as many millions, or you can work with thousands of people, or whatever that dream is in your business. You can have that because you own yourself. Like, you own your energy, you're in your discernment, you're sovereign, you're in a space where you know that you can control, and you can actually be the person that operates your own life and your own well-being, and you get your power back. And that's kind of the essence of why we work with Kundalini as well.
yeah,
Thank you so
absolutely.
much.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for being on the show. And Brittany does have an online course, which is how I found her. And yeah, it's amazing. I think that your work is really valuable, and yeah, a lot of females need to hear your work and be a bit kinder to themselves, because I think as women, and I always talk about this in the podcast, we are socialized to be perfect, and it's almost like we have to really, in order to come into ourselves, we have to realize that we don't have to be perfect, and have more self-compassion and kindness to ourselves, because we give so much to other people, but with ourselves, and I struggle with this as well. My housemate has to be like, just be kinder to yourself, especially for entrepreneurs who are very kind of high achieving and want to reach those, you know, financial sales goals. I think it's really, really important that you prioritize, you know, self-compassion and love for yourself. So thank you so much for being on the show, Brittany, and reminding us of that.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.